this morning offers the story of three young Hebrew men who refused to worship the gods of the Babylonians. So for their refusal, they were bound and thrown into a fiery furnace. And in the midst of those flames, one of the young men, Azariah, turns to God in prayer. But notice that in his prayer, he doesn't ask God to get me out of these flames. No, he doesn't ask God to punish those who were persecuting him. Instead, he asks God mercy and forgiveness for Israel. He prays on behalf of his people who were being in exile because of their failure to follow God's commandments. They were defeated by the Babylonians for their lack of faith. So Azariah, this young man, recognizes that the sins of the people have brought them to this place. So he begs God's mercy upon the whole nation, asks forgiveness. He even offers his life as a sacrifice, since the Jewish people are not in a place to offer their traditional sacrifices. It's amazing that even when faced with a horrible death, this young man calls out to God and asks God's forgiveness upon him and his people. That kind of request for mercy and forgiveness for others is what Jesus is talking about in today's gospel. He's responding to Peter's seemingly generous offer to forgive people at least 7 times if they hurt you. But Jesus makes it clear that you cannot put a limit on how many times you forgive. Capping off mercy and forgiveness is not sufficient. Rather, he says, you should be willing to forgive 77 times. In other words, there should be no limit to one's willingness to offer forgiveness. Even if you're hurt over and over again, Jesus is saying, keep forgiving. Now, for most of us, we're willing to forgive an offense or two. But after that, most of us tend to grow angry and resentful and frustrated. And then we will withhold forgiveness. We say, I've already forgiven them once. If it happens again, it's over. But if forgiveness really had a limit or a cap on it, God would have abandoned us a long time ago. How many times do we sin? How many times do we violate the commandments? Should God limit his forgiveness if we sin repeatedly? If so, we'd all be lost. Imagine what would happen if someone came into the confessional and confessed the same sin more than once. And if the priest said, sorry, you've run out of forgiveness, or you've maxed out God's mercy, how would you feel? In any event, when it comes to forgiveness, really Jesus is saying we must be like God. We must strive after that perfection that is God. If God is willing to extend his mercy towards us time and time again, should we not be willing to do the same? So like the young man in the fiery furnace, we have to remember to seek God's mercy for ourselves and for others when we're hurting, when we're hard-pressed, or going through difficult times. With each act of mercy and forgiveness, we become more like Jesus, whose mercy and compassion are without end.